Nothing better than a chat with Pat.
Yes, and today we have with us Scott Ventureyra. He has completed his PhD in philosophical theology at Carleton University, Dominican University College in Ottawa, published in academic journals. He's been in crisis magazines. I mean, his bio is so long. If I read the whole thing, we wouldn't interview him. So I'm going to jump right into the interview because this was a great story in Catholic Exchange called The Surfer Sage, What a 90s Sitcom Taught Us About Goodness. Welcome, Scott. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back on, Pat.
Oh, it's always great to talk to you. This was a very interesting article because it's about a character that was in a sitcom called Step by Step. And I must admit, I might have watched it once or twice, but I had to go back in and I watched especially this character, which I found very funny. But what drew you to him can you kind of explain a little bit about that to us?
Yeah, sure. So over the past few months, I kept seeing these clips from 1990 sitcoms showing up on my Facebook reel.
Uh-huh.
And I guess the more I watched it, the algorithms were working. And so Step by Step kept coming up. And I recalled it from, when I used to watch it from 91 to 98, I think it was about 7 seasons.
Uh-huh.
And I noticed there was something, within me that was stirring up something nostalgic, right? And, revisiting some of these familiar scenes from when I was younger. And something really struck me, though, wasn't just the sentimental aspect to it. It was something deeper that I thought was at play. And it was particularly, as you mentioned, this Cody Lambert character. And, at first glance, he appears to be just comic relief. He has a surfer slang.
Yep.
He's got a kind of a relaxed posture, and he's just very laid back. But, when I started looking a bit more at the clips, I kind of began to sense that people weren't just remembering a show. They were kind of, the people that were putting this out, the Facebook pages, are revisiting kind of a shared moral imagination, I would call it.
Ah.
Something that felt stable and I would say recognizable. So it kind of made me ask, why does this character feel so refreshing now?
Yeah.
And it made me ask what changed culturally to make this kind of goodness feel rare these days. And, that kind of became the seed of the article. It felt less than recalling entertainment, but more like recalling kind of an objective morality that we had in the past that seems to be forgotten in a lot of the shows these days.
And you're so true, Scott. I mean, that is so true. Because you talk about we just seem to have lost a moral baseline. And I think about that when I even think about here in, the Super Bowl having Bad Bunny as a halftime show. It's like that would have been unthinkable, years ago. And so I'm just thinking, what happened in our culture that this, what you call a moral baseline, seems to be extinct?
Yeah. I mean, I would say the 90s weren't exactly morally pristine, but there was kind of this shared moral grammar, this moral understanding, you could say. Virtue didn't have to defend its existence, and we kind of lost our way. Goodness could be portrayed sincerely, I would say, back then, and there were moral categories that are often now inverted or filtered through ideological frameworks. Everything's viewed through, sexuality or race. And I thought Cody comes from a world where goodness was, recognizable without, an apology. Mm-hmm. Now it's like as if you have to portray a character who's, perhaps white, Christian, heterosexual, you almost have to apologize for it, or it has to be portrayed ironically, which is a very sad state of affairs.
Yeah, it is. And I think that we kind of, because I often look at that with like Frank Capra, who produced A Wonderful Life, So many of his movies were about trying to help us become more virtuous. And he kind of went out of favor because the culture started to shift, and he refused to make movies that didn't raise people up. So, do you think there's something to this idea that TV and movies put out there about we need the grittiness of the reality of the world, and they don't really try to raise us up? Is there something there, do you think?
Yeah, I believe that, now it's like it's just fixated on ideological characterizations, things. They talk a lot about unity now, but it's more divisive than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, there's another show that I was watching. I don't know if you noticed, I wrote a review of this show called Stranger Things.
Oh, no.
And, it's kind of a sci-fi show, but there was one moment in one of the final episodes where they just fixated on one of the main characters' homosexuality as if it was a heroic trait. So this is a very common thing now. And, what we had with a character like Cody, who embodied, masculinity and gentleness at the same time, is completely lost.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you think there's, do you see any shifts bringing us back to understanding a true virtue and what that can do for people? Do you see any of that coming through the entertainment business? Do you think we're going to see a shift?
I think there's kind of a longing for it. Mm-hmm. You can see undertones. I think younger generations really long for that. I think there could be a trend in the future, but still, like, this ideological capture is still there. But I think, the fact that these Facebook Reels, are becoming more and more prominent, people, now younger generations have access to these shows as well. They have access to older music. So there's things that, there's things working away. There's that longing within the heart that just doesn't disappear.
So you talk about Cody as kind of maybe being an archetype for especially young men today. What was it about his character that made him that?
Yeah, well, he embodied a lot of different things that were admirable. He had all kinds of different virtues. In one episode, for instance, he had a stepsister because it was a blended family and Step by Step. Mm-hmm. So one of his stepsisters, Karen, was being mocked at a fraternity party for being a virgin. Mm. And Cody actually steps in, and not to shame her, but to defend her dignity. So he's affirming the self-restraint is not something that's embarrassing. He even acknowledges his own commitment to it publicly. Mm-hmm. And he uses his strength protectively, right? And, and I get into, in the article very briefly, I get into the work of Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist. Yeah. And he proposed, these symbolic patterns that recur through cultures, like you two pointed out, are archetypes.
Yeah.
So I would say they're not theological claims per se, but they're psychological structures embedded in our human imagination.
Yeah.
And,
wow.
And there's so much of that within Cody's character. For instance, there's this thing that you described as elfin figure.
Yeah. Well, I hate to cut you off, Scott. Yeah. We could talk forever, but we are already at the end of the show. So I would encourage people to go, a Catholic Exchange, and look up The Surfer Sage, what a 90s sitcom taught us about goodness. Thanks so much for being with us on the morning show, Scott. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
God bless.